so excited to be here with you guys today. This really is kind of the culmination of a dream. So thank you for all showing up and being here with me today. I have some wonderful things to share with you. So my firm, Finding Sanctuary by Kahn Designs, if you can believe this, we turned 25 this year. That's really felt like a milestone in the world. Really proud of that. And we have really come a long way in these 25 years. It's been a very interesting journey, and I'm going to share part of that with you today. So what if I told you that when we create peace in the environments that are around us, we can actually inspire peace in the environment that is inside us? Such a beautiful truth. And you know, it's one that came to me through my own personal story, which I'm going to share with you. But there is real power in that, this connection between the outer environment and our inner environment. And it is a message of such hope in the world today that I don't know about you guys, but I'll take just about any hopeful message that I can get, right? We need a little uplifting. We need a little bit of that. And why is this important? You know, why am I talking to you about this today? Honestly, it's because we're living. We're here. We're out there. I mean, all you really have to do is drive down the road, ride the metro, go shopping, turn on the news, scroll social media. And what do you find? I'm finding for myself, at least, a lot of discord, a lot of anxiety, a lot of frustration that is out there. And that gets back to us. We're experiencing it. The people around us are experiencing it. And I would like to propose to you that our spaces and our work as interior designers can make a difference with that. We can actually help to affect positive change. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today is we're going to go through what it means to create spaces of sanctuary. And you know, sanctuary is my word, and it's one that came to me. I'm going to share that story with you in a few minutes. But we all get to kind of come to this through our own way, through our own vocabulary. And I really encourage you, as you listen today, to think about how this might reflect in your practice, in the work that you're doing in the world, and to find a word that really resonates with you. So the kind of things that we're going to learn about today is the way that I have taken this idea, this concept of sanctuary, and turned it into a tangible reality of day-to-day business in a design practice. So we're going to talk and analyze about how spaces really impact our physical health and our mental health. I promise this is the only slide that I'm going to read to you, but I just really wanted to cover these things in a little depth and make sure that you understood. We're going to recognize how designing for outer peace really inspires that inner peace. We're going to demonstrate how sanctuary spaces promote healing and wellness and happiness. And we're going to talk about the natural world and the connection to that, how that can really foster our own sense of groundedness and equilibrium. And we're going to identify some very specific elements that you can use, that we all can use when we are designing spaces for our clients, and we really want to capitalize on their well-being. So also, there is the approval for this class to be a CEU. And so at the end of the presentation, just in a moment of housekeeping, there'll be a QR code that you can scan, and you will get an hour of CEU credit for coming today. So extra bonus. So I'm going to start with the story of sanctuary. This is a personal story for me, so if you'll indulge me just for a couple of minutes. As this is also a personal story, occasionally when I tell this one, there are tears, mostly mine. So we'll see how I go today, but I'm going to try to be super calm. Anyway, so in this picture, yes, that is me in the middle, but that's also my daughter, Chloe, there on the left-hand side in her beautiful red dress. Now Chloe is 26, which I know obviously I must have had her when I was a baby, right? But anyway, when Chloe was 10 years old, this was a very troubling time. And Chloe, who is an individual affected with autism, started to have seizures. And I don't know, do any of you have family members who have seizures, or have you been exposed to that? Well, I will tell you that as a mom who had not been exposed to that at all, suddenly when my little girl starts having these falling down, terrifying, hurting herself seizures in the middle of the night, it was terrifying. It was really, really something. And you're convinced at that point they're going to die. Fortunately, they don't. But getting used to this rhythm and having her wake up almost every single night, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, knowing that this was happening to her and that she was constantly sustaining injuries. Of course, I could never go back to sleep. And with this happening almost every single night, no one was sleeping. My entire family was in turmoil, and we were trying to figure out really how are we going to cope with this. Doctors, hospitals, all kinds of things. We tried so many things during this time, and it took a long time to find the right cocktail of medications and therapies that could help her maintain, right? And not have that going on all the time. But of course, as time will have it, that wasn't the only thing that was going on. I was also in the midst of divorcing her father. So that's a whole other kettle of fish that's happening. And my business was really struggling. You know, this is back when the economy was really in a very difficult place. I was losing projects. I had an employee quit right in the middle of a very important audit we had going on. And I was just at that moment. And I know we've all been there at one time or another. And it's just like something is going to give here, like something is going to break. If I don't find an answer, if I can't find a way to be calm and get a light, get a direction out of all of this, I don't actually know what I'm going to do. And I was out walking my dog Maggie, which I'll show you sweet Maggie later. I was out walking her around the lake that's behind my house. And it was one of those times where it's like 5:30, so the sun hasn't really come up. And I'm looking down the lake. Everything is black. The stars are out. And just over the trees in the distance, the sun started to come up, just ever so slightly. You know that rosy glow just before you actually start to see real light in the sky? And as that happened, I just paused for a moment on the bridge and I thought, a sign. Just please, can I have a sign? Some sort of direction, something. I need something. But make it obvious because I'm exhausted and I'm afraid I'll miss anything that's super subtle right now. So as I was thinking that and pleading with the universe, a wind picked up at the end of the lake and it blew down the lake. And I had longer hair then, lifted the ends of my hair, and I promise you goosebumps over my whole body. And maybe some of you even have goosebumps now hearing me tell this. It's a powerful, powerful moment. And in that wind, as it rushed toward me and across my ears, I heard the word sanctuary. It was whispered on the wind as if from God's lips to my ear, and I thought, is that the sign? Is that it? What a beautiful word. Sanctuary. Why is that coming to me? What does that even mean? And in that moment, I thought, you know, it means safe harbor, right? That's what it sounded like to me. Refuge. It sounds like peace. It sounds like the ability to take a deep breath, which I just hadn't done in so long. And as I grabbed Maggie and walked back to my house, I made a cup of coffee, I opened my notebook, and I sat down and I wrote what had just happened. And I began an inquiry that I am still unfolding today, 16 years later. And that is, what is the meaning of this beautiful word? And as I started to unpack this, the first thing that came to me, because I was so worried about my daughter at that time, what if I made a space of sanctuary for Chloe, right? One where if she fell, she's already low to the ground, right? She's not going to fall and truly hurt herself. What if this could be a space that could really hold her during these times? Because, you know, a lot of times with a seizure disorder, at least certainly in her case, she also developed a mood disorder. And so her behavior was super challenging and she was angry all the time. You know, we're trying out all these meds. I know that they're messing with her brain chemistry, but living with her was impossible. She was hurting the pets. She was difficult on our environment. She was ruining things. She was yelling and screaming and just in that really unhappy, activated state all the time. And I thought, okay, What does an interior designer do when we're in crisis? We turn to our space. How can I affect this and try to make this better through that? And so I decided that I would very intentionally craft a space that was just for her. But I'd never done anything quite like this before. And so I really had to rely on my intuition. And I decided, in my experience as a designer, of course, but I decided that perhaps the same voice that whispered sanctuary would kind of drop in some truth for me and give me some good inspiration. So I went into Chloe's room and I sat on the floor and I just got very quiet. And I thought, okay, a sanctuary space. How am I going to make a sanctuary space for Chloe? And so I looked out the window and I thought, okay, you know, the natural environment is one of the most healing places in the world. We know that green spaces have a big effect on our ability to be grounded, to have equilibrium, and to be calm. And so I thought, all right, what I need to do is I need to get some of that in here. And what else? Well, Chloe is taking in this environment through her senses. So let me address those one at a time. What is she seeing? Let us make it be things that are natural, things that are organic, things that she will love, her favorite colors, her favorite things. What is she hearing? What is the audio environment that she has? And you know, I remembered that when the kids were really little and I would come home from work at 5 or 6 o'clock, it was the bewitching hour, right? Everybody's tired, everybody's hungry, everybody needs a bath. Like, it's not a happy moment. Everybody's running around. And I used to put on a really calming CD, and instantly the energy level of the house just, whew, like everybody calmed down. Everybody breathed a little deeper. Everybody was a little gentler to each other. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to put a speaker back here. So, and I got her an iPad. Remember, this was iPod. This was 16 years ago, so we didn't have all the things we have now. And I loaded some music on there that would be really calming and really soothing for her. And then I thought, okay, what is she smelling? I got an aromatherapy diffuser. I did some reading on aromatherapy and some of the various scents that are available. And you know, I didn't realize that the mucus glands in our nose, when we take in scents, that goes straight into our bloodstream. So that literally changes your body's chemistry. Okay, good stuff. So I tried some things. I got some aromatherapy for her. And then I thought about, what is she feeling against her skin? I made her bed into a literal nest of soft blankets, soft pillows, things that would feel really good against her skin and that would soothe her. I put a big plush carpet on the floor so that when she was down on the floor, I put all of her furniture down. You know, her mattress was now on the floor, so it's not so far to fall. I just really thought about her personal experience in that space. And I will tell you that then I wrapped the door, put a big bow on it. I wrapped it in wrapping paper and I said, Chloe, you get a present today. Today is the day that you get to start having a sanctuary. So 10-year-old Chloe's like, what? A sanctuary? What's that? I said, this is a room that's just for you, honey. This is a place where you can come and decompress. This is a place where you can come and start to be able to regulate your own emotions. And this is a place where you can be the highest of the high, the lowest of the low. And this space is to hold you. She was so excited. And so go to your room, which used to be the punishment, was now, Chloe, why don't you go spend a little time in your sanctuary and then come out and talk to me when you're feeling better? And you know what happened out of that? Exactly that. She started feeling better. She had this place to go that was just so for her. When she was mad, she could go punch those pillows and yell into them. When she was happy, she could dance in front of her mirror and color in her coloring books. She had a space that was just literally for her. And I had put my energy into creating that for her. And she felt that love every time she was in there. And so what came back out of her room was not the Chloe that was hurting the pets. This was the Chloe that was smiling. She was calm. She was happier. And I was like, this is a miracle, okay? Finally, like, we're calming down her seizures. The medications were starting to catch up. We were getting a better cocktail of things for her. The space was really helping, all of these things. And I thought, wow, this is super powerful. I think I need a sanctuary. You know, honestly, being her mom, it's not so easy. And her brother also needs one because it's not easy to be her brother. You know, she pounds on him all the time. And my husband, who's a musician, what if I turned his studio into more of a sanctuary for him? How might that help him cope with a lot of the things that are going on? And what started as a family in chaos and turmoil turned into a family living happily and peacefully together in a big, beautiful sanctuary. And the power of that just, it literally changed my life. It changed the lives of everyone in my family. And I was so tickled by the effect of this and the power that intentional design can have right on my own life in my family that I thought, all right, this deserves further explanation and exploration. And I happened to be working with a business coach at that time. I was telling her the story. She said, Lise, this is more than just a great story. This is your design philosophy. She said, pull your portfolio up. Let's look at this together. And as we did, and I was telling her the story of my client, she said, you've already been doing this. You've already been creating spaces of sanctuary for people. You just didn't have the vocabulary. So let's develop that. Let's go there and let's turn this into a message that people can understand, and let's make it something that people can use. And I just loved that so, so much. And so I have spent these last 16 years really unpacking that. I've gone back to school, I got my master's degree. Like, I really am about understanding this because it's so powerful. And as I shared with you in the beginning, it's such a hopeful message in the world today. And I just really think that it is a way that we, all of us in this room, become a mighty force that can really do some positive change in the world. So this is how, and what we're going to talk about next is how I took this word, this amazing and beautiful concept, and then I turned it into, as I mentioned, the tangible reality of my everyday business. So over these years, sanctuary has evolved into three basic things. Very simply, it is, of course, a physical place. It is a space that we can create as designers for ourselves. And, we're going to go a lot today between spaces we can create for ourselves and then also spaces we can create for our clients. It is as important that we are making these spaces for ourselves as it is that we make them for our clients. Because I don't think that we can truly address wellness and well-being in other people without first exploring what is our own relationship to well-being? What is our own level of wellness? How are we expressing well-being in our lives? I think we kind of have to go there and really turn that light of self-examination on ourselves. So we're going to kind of go between the two today. But so the physical place, it is also a daily practice. And we'll unpack exactly what that means. And over these 16 years, it has evolved into something even larger, which is a design and a life philosophy. So let's talk about the physical space first. And I want to get into the philosophy of it, yes, but I also really want to talk about the nuts and bolts of it. I want to talk about actual, tangible things that you can do in your own spaces and in the spaces of your family, your friends, your colleagues, your workspace, and those of your clients as well. So I put this up so that I could share with you as inspiration my own sanctuary. And this is what it has evolved into over the years. That upper left picture is my space that I sit in at home every single day. So you might think a sanctuary has to be a room with a door that closes that's private just for you. Well, I'm the mom, so no, it doesn't, because if I'm in there, who knows what's happening in the rest of the house? I need to keep an eye on everybody. So mine is actually at the end of my great room. I set off the area by putting a big area rug there. I got a big old table. I rescued it from a local flea market and put that in the middle of it because one of the things I love to do is to write, and I love to paint, and I needed a project surface. And sometimes I even work from home here. But you can see that beside me is almost a wall of windows. Those are sliding glass doors that look out at the lake behind my house. So I have that beautiful nature connection, and we talked a little bit ago about why that's important. I have a vision board that's behind me. I put things up there that I paint, inspiring quotes, things I want to remember, things that people send me. These are things that make me feel good. And that's one of the important things that a sanctuary space is meant to do for us. It needs to make us feel good. When you look at the next picture, in the middle with the bookcase and all the squares, that is what is across from my table. So I love to read, and I have a couple of chairs there. I sit there by myself. I invite my family in. This is a place of intellectual pursuits, of relaxing, of sharing, of talking. Sometimes I want to be alone in my sanctuary, and sometimes I want my family in my sanctuary. So I have the ability to have both of that. That cabinet that's behind my desk is stuffed full of art supplies and journals and all kinds of crazy things. And then you can see also that my dogs are there. These are also very much an important part of my sanctuary. I think they have even done studies that show us how being able to bury your hands in the fur of a warm animal, the sweetness of a cat purring, even bunnies jumping around. I mean, different pets for different people, but I really do love my dogs, and spending time with them is very calming and grounding for me. And in the bottom right hand, that is my living room area. And yes, that is a hammock. One of the things that I have really loved is trying out different things. And my kids absolutely love having that there. So what is it that makes a sanctuary space? We've talked about the natural world, and I just cannot underline that nearly enough, because really that natural energy of the natural world in our spaces is the bottom line. It is the foundational principle on which spaces of sanctuary are built. And you know, not everybody has the luxury of having an entire wall of windows. I realize, you know, we've done a couple of renovations to pre-war apartment buildings in New York City. And, you know, honestly, there was one or two windows, and to even see the sky, I had to lay down on the floor and crane my neck to catch like a little ribbon of what felt like an inch of sky, because the other building is right there. That's what you're looking out at. But what's interesting is that even representations of nature, and we're going to talk about some of that as we go along, can really bring that healing energy into the world. So the view, while celebrated, is not required. We can create sanctuary in anything, even a renovated closet. One of the other things that I did this past year, which was super interesting, is I took a class from the Harvard Medical School, and it was on human happiness and well-being. And Harvard has the longest standing study on human happiness in the world. It has been going on for 85 years. I was blown away by that. And the psychiatrist who was running that study was the one who gave the class. And he talked in there, the bottom line of all of it is connection. That is what is at the heart of human happiness and well-being, is connection. And it isn't just connection to other people, it's also connection to living beings. For me, my dogs. It's connection to trees, it's connection to grass and water and the earth and the sky. It's all of those things. And we talked just a little bit ago when I was creating the space of sanctuary for Chloe about how we take our spaces in through our senses. And so that is something to tick through in a very methodical way. When we create a space of sanctuary, we just think, okay, what are we looking at? What are we hearing? What are we smelling? What are we feeling? I mean, I cannot be the only one who has gone to eat in a restaurant and had to peel their arms and legs off of a vinyl booth seat, right? You know that. That is not sanctuary, right? Not a good feeling. We want things that feel good against our skin. And we also really want to think about these elements of the natural world. So the natural color palettes, I spend time. Every space that I design, I go outside where that space is and I look at what is around. We want to place it where it belongs. And the natural environment will always offer us clues. You know, blues and greens are some of the most powerful colors in the spectrum in terms of creating a sanctuary space, because really every place has sky, right? And we're talking about these beautiful greens of the natural world, of the trees, of the grass, of the beautiful foliage that's outside. And one of the things that I learned in my studies of color psychology and color theory is that green is the most relaxing color to the cones in your eye. Did you know that? It's true. Your entire system goes on calm alert when you see green. I didn't know that, but I love learning things like that. That's powerful knowledge that we can bring that a lot of people don't know. And blue, they did a study with college students and in particular graduate students, and they gave them some problems that they had to solve, and they tried different colors around them. And what they found is that creative thinking, creative problem solving happens best in a blue environment. Also, the forms, geometry, symmetry. Symmetry is known to create peace. It makes us feel peaceful when we walk into an environment that has symmetry. And geometry is so important, from the sacred geometry of the Fibonacci spiral in the nautilus shell to the completely perfect arrangements of petals on a succulent plant. Sacred geometry is at the very heart of the structure of the natural world. So when we then design those things into our spaces, we are echoing that in a really powerful and profound way. Organic materials, using natural woods, natural stones, everything as natural as we can possibly get it, brings that earth vibration into the space. And of course, access to nature. Like that is just always, always at the heart of all of it, and something that we need to seek out for ourselves, for our clients when we're working on projects. And this is not just residentially that I'm talking about. We also work on very large commercial spaces, and sanctuary can be created in all kinds of spaces. But as I mentioned before, having a beautiful space isn't enough. We have to actually use it. We have to activate it, because just having a space to look at is stunning. But we are talking about a deeper experience. We are talking about being in relationship with this space. How can this space support us? Well, it can't support us if we're not going to spend any time there. And the kind of things that we do there need to be the kind of things that fill us back up. And that is why sanctuary is so profoundly unique and individual to every person. What works for one person does not necessarily work for another person, because what does fill you up? When is the last time that you sat down and thought, all right, I just really need to take this weekend and fill my vessel. What am I going to do? I bet all of us would have different answers. But I put together a couple of things to show you some of the practices that I employ. I love to write. I find writing processes my emotions. It helps me get in touch with my experiences. It helps me kind of clear the dross off of my brain in the morning. And it also helps me record important things. In my morning writing, that phrase, when we create peace around us, inspires peace within us, that came to me in my morning writing. It can be a time of profound inspiration. Also, taking a bath. That can be a sanctuary activity, something that fills us back up, something that nourishes us and nurtures us. Also, anything creative. And I would like to suggest that creativity is not just painting. Yes, I do like to paint, but creativity is found in everything. I mean, creativity can be cooking. Creativity can be gardening. Like there are so many outlets for our creativity. It can be dancing. In addition, meditating. Meditating is not for everybody. Some people would rather pray. Some people would rather make a cup of their favorite hot beverage and stare out the window and just kind of muse a little bit. The point of all of this is to look inside. The point of all of it is to calm down, to come back to center. And these sorts of contemplative practices can help us do that. I also have a singing bowl. Sometimes the vibrations of that when I'm sitting on the floor just really kind of help calm me down. Reading, we talked about that, reading something that makes you feel good. But even something as simple as lighting a candle can change exactly how you feel in that moment. Putting on some soft music. The audio environment is so important, right? It can lift us up, it can calm us down in a second. And so these are the sorts of things that we can employ in our space of sanctuary to really help lift us back up. We're trying to raise our own energy vibration, fill that emptied vessel that we're carrying around, because we've been in the world. It's crazy sometimes, a lot of chaos. We arrive back home depleted. So how do we fix that? We have to spend time doing things that do that. We have to prioritize it and do that with intention. But what I have found is that when we do that, and by that, I mean fill that vessel inside back up, and we do this day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, we change. And when we change, our life changes. And the kind of change that I have been able to see in myself, in my family, in my clients, is This type of activity builds resilience. One of my favorite words other than sanctuary, because resilience is what makes it possible for us to control our reaction to situations in our life. I mean, we can't control what happens in the world today. Not really. I mean, we can control a few things around us, but that circle of influence is small. But our circle of concern is big. So in that circle of concern, what we have to do, the only thing we can control is our reaction to it. Could any of us have seen that a pandemic was coming? I didn't. That was a surprise. And how do we respond to that? We have to find our own inner resilience. And so I am suggesting that our spaces give us the recipe to be able to build this for ourselves. And if we can do this and build this for ourselves, we can also create environments for our clients to do this so they can do it also. And you can see the chain effect of this, can't you? I mean, if more and more people are feeling better, if more and more people are spending time looking within, calming down, coming back to center, the world is going to be a lot less chaotic. And this is how peace in our environment inspires peace in our inner environment. Because that's really what it's all about, isn't it? The inner environment. We're using our outer space as a portal to the inner space. And that is where peace lives. That is where resilience lives. That is where our natural generosity lives. That's where our strength and calm live. And we can do that with this very simple method of creating spaces of sanctuary. So I want to share with you now some of my tried and true resources. And I'm going to share some of the tricks and some of the tools that I use. And I encourage you to please ask any questions that you have as I move through. One of the things in talking about the natural world is that often we design spaces that don't really have beautiful views, don't we? Yeah? When I bought my last studio building, when I walked in, there was nothing but a big wall. And I really wanted people coming into my space to have this sanctuary experience. So how would I do that? Well, I decided that I would create a big moss wall. I also love living walls, but that was a little too high maintenance for me at that particular juncture. So I had my carpenter build a giant frame up on the wall. I ordered a jillion boxes of moss. I enlisted my husband's help. I got some glue guns, and we spent 15 hours gluing moss into this frame and creating a moss sculpture. And you know what? I actually think my husband will be married to me forever because that was dedication. Like, seriously, he really loves me. But that moss wall, when people walk in, I embedded crystals in it. I did other things in the space, but it was preserved also, so easy to maintain. But when people walked in, they were just like, whoa. Everybody who came in was amazed, delighted. Everybody commented on it. So it worked, right? I did not have a view. There was nothing to look at. It was a parking lot. So they got to walk in and have that blast of beautiful nature energy. Also, some of the companies out there are helping us. They're creating products that we can use that really help. Kravit. How many of you are aware that Kravit has a line of fabrics called Celliant? And this particular fabric is a wellness fabric. And what they did is they took the technology that goes into infrared mats, you know, the kind that people lie on for well-being and grounding and balancing. They took that technology, they developed it and wove it into a fiber, made a cloth from that. And this cloth, I actually recovered the chairs and ottoman in front of my bookcase at home, the one I showed you. And I sit there every morning and meditate. And it is activated, instead of by infrared lights, by the heat in your body. How amazing is that? So we are working on, as I mentioned, some large commercial projects right now. One of them in particular is for a group of individuals who are part of the intellectually and developmentally challenged group. And being able to have access to use things like this to support them, yes, please, I'm about it. Also, some of the natural murals that are out there right now, there are so many. York has some beautiful ones that we have used with great success. I'm also obsessed with some of the things coming out right now from Mind the Gap, which is a fun paper company. And also Rebel Walls has some great ones. Philip Jeffries has some wonderful muraled papers. But these are another way that we can create that nature vibe inside when we need to accentuate it or create it because of a lack of view. But also, I want to talk about our sourcing and where we're actually buying our furniture. Because I don't know if you guys are experiencing this, but right now they are opening a Serena and Lily and a Restoration Hardware in Naples. And so every client that I'm meeting with right now just wants to go there and buy all their furniture because they can walk in, they can see it. Mine is a design office. We buy things, from catalogs, we buy things from online and from our visits to the factories. So this is being a challenge to educate them on what I see as the fast fashion of interior design, which, yes, there is a buyer, and yes, Serena and Lily and Restoration Hardware have their market, but I want to do something that doesn't wear out after a year or 2 years, because it is not enough for me to have well-being for myself. I also would like the earth to be well. I also would like my community to be well. I also would like to be supporting the kind of resources that fit with my value system of wanting to create these spaces of sanctuary. We do not appoint spaces of sanctuary in my office with fast fashion furniture. We don't. We want to do something that lasts. We want to do something that is worthy of reupholstery. We want to do something that can be passed to someone else to be able to continue to be in use, less stuff in the landfills. So one of the vendors that I had a chance to visit with recently, and I flew to their factory in North Carolina. How many of you have heard of Chaddock Furniture? Several. So Chaddock is a wonderful resource. I just really love them, and I had no idea what an amazing culture they have as a company. It is awesome. The way that they treat their employees, the way that they value artisanship, craftsmanship. I mean, there are hands that are literally tying every single one of those 8-way hand-tied springs that go into their sofas and chairs. And I got to try it, and it's harder than it looks. But also the way that they hand create their finishes and the chains that they use to distress things, and the people that are literally loving on these pieces that they're creating and polishing and buffing and upholstering and stapling and all the stuff that goes into it. You know that energy goes into that piece, right? It does. That person's love and care and expertise and attention, all that is in them gets into that piece. And I love that, because that's the kind of stuff that we want to be surrounding ourselves with. That's the kind of stuff that at my firm we really want to be supporting, the creation of in the world. And so that brings me to one of my favorite points. So when the word sanctuary arrived so magically as it did on that morning out behind my house, I realized that one of the best things that I could do would be to get as much experience in creating sanctuaries as possible. And so in doing that, I needed to try out a lot of stuff, because 16 years ago, people were not really talking about wellness and well-being in our industry, not like they are now. So it was a bit of a lonely path out there, and I just really had nothing but my own devices and my own stage to try these things on. So I turned my house and I turned my studio into sanctuary labs, and I tried things like hammocks in the living room. I tried all kinds of different paint products, different scents, different playlists, different layouts, different everything, different lighting. Like, I really, really went there, and I have continued to explore this over the past 16 years. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we take all of these elements and we turn them into actual spaces that we're creating for our clients. So when I look at this slide, I am so struck by the beauty of the color on the cabinetry and the millwork that is in that study in the middle. And when you look to the left and you look at that water, I promise you, going into this study, you feel like you're underwater. It is just one of my absolute favorite colors. It's called Refuge by Sherwin-Williams. And that notion of being in the water, and then you can look out that window, that door that is in the distance and see the palm tree, and that bark, the pattern of that as the wood wallpaper goes up the wall, the way that that seamlessly comes into the space gives me goosebumps. I love it so, so much. And the image that's on the far right, for this particular client, that beautiful flowered fabric that is on those draperies flanking that window, it is as if we literally brought her flower garden right into her breakfast room, and she gets to breakfast and have coffee every morning in the midst of that. And down in the left, that is a master bathroom, a primary bath that we completed. And the mother of pearl that is around the little blue celestite quatrefoils almost gives you the notion of the inside of a seashell and being able to bathe in there. I think Venus herself, perhaps, would be envious of that bath. This particular master bedroom that is in the center slide looks out at the Gulf of Mexico. And so we found this fabulous wallpaper. And to be able to have that horizon line come right through into the space and echoed right on their master bedroom wall, oh, I love that. And we talked a little bit ago about the power of the bath. So, being able to create these bathrooms that give you that almost garden-like feeling. And the little sitting area that is down in the bottom of the slide where you can sit almost in the garden and catch up after a long day, read a book, relax. I am constantly enthralled with the shape of leaves and how fascinating they are, and how when layered into a space, they just add such an organic energy to a space. And everything down to that beautiful appointing of a bed, down to the linens that we choose and the filling that is in that duvet cover and in those pillows that people are going to lean back against. We think about all of these things and how they create this into a space of sanctuary for our clients. We talked a little bit ago about the power of light, to have the most natural light source possible so that the spaces can feel luminous, so that they can feel just absolutely, our spirits lift when we see things like that. And you can see from the staircase that we designed in the foyer there in the middle, again with that beautiful Fibonacci spiral. That is how we echo some of these sacred geometry things into our space. The chandelier that is hanging there in that middle slide is one that was in my design studio. I don't know if any of you know Aviva Stanoff, who has a collection with Curry, but she has designed some pieces that have rock crystals hanging on them. Obsessed. Aviva's amazing. She's also crazy and hilarious, if you ever have a chance to meet her. But having that, you can imagine hanging above my beautiful moss wall, it was spectacular. So we really layer in these natural elements. And that cabinet that is in the far right, you can only catch a little glimpse of that with the corner, but we had some hand watercolored paper that looked like the movement of water, and it was inset into the doors of that cabinet under the TV in a great room. And spaces of sanctuary do not always have to be large. They can also be quite small. You can see in that bottom little desk area, just having even the smallest space where we can pause, where our clients can pause and just catch up with themselves, it all works. In the middle slide, that is the dining room. That is a muraled paper that we found from Paul Montgomery Studios, and it literally feels as if you are dining outside. I absolutely love that paper. It's one of my favorite. So I also wanted to share with you one of my other favorite sources from this slide, and that vanity that you see is from J. Tribble. Are you guys familiar with them? One of my favorite companies that creates custom sink bases and vanities. John Tribble started out as an antiques dealer in Atlanta, and he had so many people wanting to buy his commodes and chests of drawers and turning them into vanities that then he developed his own line of reproductions, and his pieces are amazing. He will do custom, but he also has things that are part of his line. We use them on almost all of our projects. They're really wonderful, and they're solid wood, and they're real. And I really wanted to share this slide with you because that study that is on the right-hand side, this particular house is on a lake. And when they open up those doors, the lake is almost a member of the family. Like it literally is in the room. And all of the choices that we made in there do everything we possibly could to embrace that and pull it into the room. So that is the mindset that goes along with this creation of sanctuary spaces. And yes, that's my collection of hearts at the bottom in the middle. I absolutely love hearts, and I have found ones in stone, in leather, in lockets, in just everything. A very fun thing to collect, and it reminds me to stay heart-centered. So these, again, are the kind of things that we want to have around us, these reminders. They're like little signposts back to who we really are. But you know, it's more than just us at this point. Yay, there are other people that are talking about this now too. And in going back to school and studying the philosophy behind all of this, back to Plato, I came across some really wonderful minds in our time, and I wanted to share those with you in case you want to do your own deep dive. One of them is an architect from Finland. His name is Juhani Palasma, and he wrote the book, The Eyes of the Skin. He is such a beautiful writer. He is what I want to be when I grow up. The way he describes the spaces and our experience as we move through them, it is nothing short of poetry. And he had a line that will stay with me until my last breath, and it is that the door handle is the handshake of the building. Isn't that beautiful? So when I did my studio building, it was worth it to me to wait for 6 months for those beautiful custom handles because people are touching that, right? We're shaking their hand, we're welcoming them in. And I think he also points to something that I want to bring up one more time to make sure you got it. And that is, we want to think of our spaces as something we can be in relationship with. We want to think of them. We can exchange energy with them. We need to think of them as a partner. And that kind of statement does that for me. Also, Dr. Esther Sternberg, she wrote this book called Healing Spaces. She has a beautiful but very long CEU class that you can take about creating healing spaces. Now, her specialty is hospitals, but I found it fascinating because during COVID, nobody wanted to go to hospitals. Like, we needed to be able to heal at home, and I wouldn't know why we wouldn't use healing modality in our homes. Why wouldn't we? You know, we want to experience wellness at all times. And she really specializes in interior design. That is her space. Christopher Alexander. Has anybody ever heard of Christopher Alexander? So he passed during COVID, unfortunately. Also an architect, and he has written some incredible books. He has something called The Pattern Language, which was a rabbit hole I went down getting my master's degree and loved. I can talk to anyone about that later who's interested. But he also wrote a 4-part series called The Nature of Order. And the last book was called, wait for it, The Luminous Ground. And I was like, oh, I want to read that every day of my life. Yes, I would like to be on luminous ground. But you can see these are kindred spirits. These are people who are viewing spaces and talking about them as sanctuaries. But also, there is so much happening right now in the world of science and our understanding of the brain and neuroaesthetics and understanding how to design inclusively for people with brains that work differently. You know, that whole inclusivity is a very important topic that is out there today, and it's something that is on the lips of many, many people, and I see it really changing some of our industry. So one to keep an eye on. But this really is where you can see, so we started with a space. We understood then that it also needs to be a daily practice. And this is where it becomes a life philosophy. Because after practicing this, after being in these spaces, we suddenly look at life differently. We look at things like, how are we supporting our community? I mentioned before, it's not enough for me to just have well-being or just my family. I really would like my community to have well-being too. And so we have really expanded our outreach as a company, and we do a ton of pro bono design work for nonprofit organizations. I mentioned the one that serves the IDD community. We're doing a huge center for them right now, a whole campus, in fact. And we donated our services to them because I don't necessarily have $1 million in the bank to give them, but giving them my expertise is almost priceless because that community of people, their entire lives will transform because of what we're doing there. We are also working with our local mental health center. They are renovating their campus, and so we're plugging in there because it isn't just the people who are receiving services in these spaces, it's also the people who are working there. I care about their experience too because caregiver fatigue is real. Truly. And being able to support them is important. You know, we just got a call last week. We have a Four Seasons hotel going up right now on the beach in Naples. And I got a call from the woman who is in charge of people and culture. And she said, I heard about your message of wellness. Talk to me about this. And I did. And she said, the Four Seasons has an initiative right now for wellness because we expect our employees, our team has to deliver customer service at such a high level all the time. And she said, and as you know, people are not always nice. I said, really? Okay, weird. But being able to give them spaces and have them operating out of the team spaces, these subterranean hotel spaces, we're working on some of those right now so that they can have a good experience too. This goes all the way through organizations, but it does really affect how I view our involvement and how we can give back in the community. We talked about filling your cup. We talked about really spending time and being very intentional about making ourselves feel uplifted, picking ourselves back up. How do we meet the world? How can we do that and be our best selves? Well, now we know. But this goes over also into how we run our businesses. You know, how do we run our businesses? Do we work in ways that are sustainable? Do we do things in our offices with our teams that really honor them so that they feel seen, they feel supported, they feel nurtured in the work that they're doing for us? You know, we talked about families earlier. It's certainly part of that. But it really is how we are being in the world. It's how we are moving in the world. And I think about everything so differently these days. I even think about how I spend my money. You know, what am I supporting? What brands am I standing behind with my orders? What are we doing with all this recycling and all the stuff that comes out of an install? Like, it's shocking, the mountain of debris that is left once we install one of these big projects that we work on. And so I'm thinking about all of these things, and I'm really trying to be a better citizen. And I owe it all to that little moment behind the lake behind my house. And it also goes back to connection and meaningful relationships. You know, I've talked about that several times today, but you know, we're all making a connection right here today. All of our life trajectory just changed because we're all here today and we're talking about something that's so important and so pivotal and so potentially impactful if it's something that we're willing to pick up and bring into our own practice, bring into our own lives, be changed, and then be the change that we want to see in the world. And so that is how sanctuary shows up in my life. I really am asking myself questions every single day. How can I do better? How are we being as a company? Are we good stewards of our resources? Are we sharing as much sanctuary with the world as we possibly can? Because when we do that, we're living our values. And there really is nothing that is better than that. To me, that is the end game, right? We are being congruent with the people that we are. We are showing it in the world. And when we do that, when we do these things that we have talked about today, it cannot help but ignite a light that is inside of us. And what happens when that light is lit? We're moving in the world, other people see it. We become a beacon to other people. We are harbingers of goodness and change and positive reaction in the world. We are sanctuary. We bring that experience with us wherever we go. We are the embodiment of well-being and wellness. And you know, I think oftentimes we feel quite small in the world and we think, what can I do? The world is overwhelming. It's chaotic, it's wild, it's uncertain. But the truth is, it takes only the smallest number of people getting together and making the smallest changes that really turns something from a word into a movement, into something that literally changes us and helps us be in a position to change the world. I promised I would share Maggie with you, my sweet girl Maggie, that ever-loving connection. I had to laugh at these pictures. The one on the left looks like we're making out. I promise you we're not. Such a sweet girl. So for any of you who find this captivating, anyone who feels compelled to shift a few things for themselves, please connect with me. These QR codes will lead you to our blog. I write every other week about pertinent sanctuary tools, tips, philosophies, things we're experiencing, things we're trying out in our labs. It's a great place where we share, and it's a very engaged community. It's also where you will see news about the book that I'm writing on sanctuary, the first in a series that we're planning. You'll also see things about some of the product lines. We have a product line right now with Chelsea House. I don't know if any of you have heard of them, but we design a sanctuary line for them. And we have 2 or 3 other product lines in development right now. So these things are going to be coming out. I really would like to be able to have amassed a sanctuary home collection that I think would really support this message and be a place that people could go to find the products of sanctuary. And also, you know, sharing our reels and our different moments of inspiration on Instagram. So for any of you who want to get this CEU credit, if you'll scan this QR code, you'll be able to get the certificate for that and get credit for your time being here today. And more than anything, I really just want to thank all of you for taking the time, for being here, for showing up. That's a thing in the world today, you know? Attention spans are short, and all of you have been very patient and very generous and kind with me. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.